Hi everyone, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us today. My name is Rob Melser. I'm a developer educator at FlowForge. First of all, I should say I'm hosting this webinar. I'm not actually the speaker. My colleague Steve is speaking. My first time hosting, so I'm trying to make sure I get everything right. But if it's not quite as slick as some of my colleagues, if you've attended some of our webinars before, I apologize. I will get better at it. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Just so you know, this webinar is being recorded. We will make that recording available to our YouTube channel in the next couple of days once we can get the video edited down and uploaded. So yeah, potentially if you want to share that with anyone who you think it might be of interest to. It would be really nice. Some of you are already doing it. If you don't mind, go in the chat, introduce yourself, maybe say where you are, perhaps say, what industry you're in or what you're studying, and maybe, what you're hoping to get from this presentation. That would be fantastic to hear that. If you have any questions that you want to ask, we would really like to hear those. That's fantastic. The way to raise questions is through the Q&A pod, which if you mouse over the Zoom screen, you should see it come up Q&A as one of the options. So if you want to ask any questions, please put them in there. I will be keeping an eye on that throughout Steve's presentation, answering some of the things if I can, but then also we will address as many questions as we can once Steve's finished. So yeah, anything that comes to mind, please drop it in there. I think I think that's everything I need to do. I think I've done all the intros necessary. So other than to say, Steve, if you're there, I'd like to introduce everyone to my colleague, Steve McLaughlin. Steve, I don't know if right now I can't see your camera. There you are.
Use my name correctly, Rob.
Oh, I do my best. Hello there. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Over to you, Steve. Yeah, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll kick off. About me, currently work for FlowForge. I'm a maintainer on Node-RED open source project. Before Node-RED, I was 25 years experience in the automotive industry. I've worked on all manner of data collection from robots, PLCs, discrete devices, and typically that was to put that data into an in-house system, an OEE, and downtime recording and reporting system. And alongside it, I did develop web-based plant overviews for production engineering, momentary glance information so they know the state of production at any time point of the day. So I said 25 years experience in the automotive industry, but I left and I joined FlowForge. So yeah, for around the last 6 years or so, I've been very active on the Node-RED community. During this time, I realized the huge benefits of Node-RED to the manufacturing industry, to all industry, but where I was in the manufacturing industry. Additionally, the Node-RED community is fantastic and everybody is super helpful. And if there's any Node-RED forum members listening in today, I'm sure they will attest to that as well. So while I was using Node-RED in my previous workplace, I developed a few custom nodes. Some of them you may or may not have used or heard of. MSS, Microsoft SQL Plus node, Cron Plus node, Omron Fins node, MC protocol, which is your Mitsubishi PLC protocol communications, image tool nodes, just to name a few, but you might get the gist that those are very sort of enterprise business type nodes, especially around data collection and data storage, etc., which was my primary role in my previous job. So what made me actually jump ship and join FlowForge? I mean, it was a daunting prospect leaving a job of 25 years for a startup company. However, I would be joining a new and dynamic startup, working on the thing that I love, Node-RED, alongside some great guys, including the boss, Nick. Sorry, cheap shot. And why Node-RED? Well, let's just say you have some legacy equipment. You need to get data from it. Node-RED is fantastic for integration. As you can see from this slide, there are over 4,300 contribution nodes, community contribution nodes, on top of all the stuff that Node-RED does out of the box, which then makes your data obtainable. And it's fantastic for processing and handling data. It's a low-code, for those of you that may or may not be aware, it is a low-code platform. It's drag and drop. It's a visual tool. Mostly low code, no code a lot, low code some, but it just makes it easy to program data collection applications, to create program feedback loops where you're integrating various things. You need to feedback results, feed forward results, but because it's low code and to a degree no code, you can have more employees involved in that task, and productivity goes up, right? That's what it's all about. Some points on the slide: 160,000 monthly visitors to Node-RED.org, 500,000 monthly downloads from Docker Hub, and over a million people, a million page views on the Node-RED. It's hugely popular. It's where things are happening. It's a really good product, if I don't say so myself. Okay, so why cover this topic? Yeah, in my previous role, sorry if I mention I worked in automation in the automotive industry and manufacturing for 25 years. It's a lot of time spent to forget and not mention. So it comes up in my conversation, and I draw experience from it. So one of the common aspects of my job was the boss needs more graphs. He wants more visualizations, and it might come as a surprise to some managers, but the visualization is just the front piece. There's a lot of stuff goes on under the hood. There's a lot of wiring to do. Data doesn't grow on trees, and you need data to visualize. So this demo was put together to tell the whole story, or at least a version of that story, in data collection. So, are we ready for that? No, we're not. We're not quite ready for that. I'll explain the chain of data in simplistic forms from the beginning to the end. So you obviously have to collect the data, and in many cases that involves industrial protocols, and Modbus is very popular. You've got Siemens S7, you've got Omron, Fins, Mitsubishi, Allen Bradley, Ethernet IP. There's lots of them, but none of them are what you call IoT or IIoT ready. They are starting to appear. You're getting MQTT and PLCs and things, but there's lots of different protocols, and there's lots of different manufacturers, and you need some way of sort of bringing that all together, and that's where Node-RED comes in. So we use Node-RED to do the first element, which is to collect the data. Then you get this data, and it's bytes, it's bits, it's raw, it's you need to do something with it. So again, Node-RED is used to transform that data into something a lot more manageable, typically into JSON or XML or some reasonably usable value. And that's all good and well. You've managed to collect the data and transform it into something nice, but you've got to then do something with it. You've got to get it to the manager. So we publish this data. In this example that I'm going to go through, we use the MQTT protocol, which, if you're not familiar with it, you'll just have to trust us when I say it's very easy and extremely useful, and it'll be worth getting on board if you're not already on board with MQTT. So you publish that data. Then next you need to ingest the published data, probably want to store that data, and likely, or more, should I say, definitely want to be generating user reports. It's what the boss wants at the end of the day. For this demonstration, I'd just like to point out that I'll be using one Node-RED for the data visualization, data storage, and data reporting. And typically, this will be separated out to make it more resilient, to make it more scalable, to avoid any bottlenecks. But for this demonstration, there'll be one Node-RED instance doing that element of it. There'll be a separate Node-RED instance doing the data collection and transformation. Okay. So, yeah, as the slide says, we could spend forever talking through PowerPoint, but let's look at some flows and some code and start showing you how to collect some data and do some stuff. The first thing I haven't found it. I normally kind of get out of the slideshow thing. So, this is possibly not familiar with to you guys, but I'm using FlowForge because not because this is Node-RED only, but I find it super easy to launch new versions and new instances of Node-RED. So that's why you're seeing FlowForge here. Just ignore it for now. I've got two instances of Node-RED. One I've called device, the other one I've called dashboard. So if I go into the device flows, ignore what you've just seen for now. The first thing I'm going to demonstrate is how we get raw data from a PLC, an industrial protocol. This could be Modbus, it could be Siemens, it could be anything. But in this case, because I have, and I will show you, I have a PLC made by Omron that I picked up on eBay, nice and cheap. I'm using that for this demonstration of collecting data from an industrial device like a PLC. Hopefully you can see my screen and it's large enough. Please let Rob know if it's not zoomed in enough or it's not clear, but
we should be able to see that fine, Steve. It looks good to me.
Cool, good. The first thing we need to trigger an action, so we'll start with the good old inject node. It doesn't do anything in particular other than start things moving. I'm going to feed that into Finn's node to read some data. I'm going to ask for an address of D1000 for you Omron guys, data memory for you older Omron guys, DM1000 for you Siemens guys. I guess that's a DB block. Okay, we'll just grab some data and we need to see it somewhere, so I'm going to put it into a debug for now. I'm going to deploy that. I'm going to bring up the debug view and I'm going to press the button. And there we have some data. And I'm sure it makes sense to everyone. That's telling you the production stats and everything in there. Yeah, it's raw data, and it's pretty much what you get when you connect to legacy devices, TCP connections and things like that. You've got to make sense of the data. You've got to have a cheat sheet or a document that tells you what is where. So the next part of this journey is making sense of that data. At the minute, it's just raw. So what I tend to use here, I mean, I could do this in a function node, I could do it in change nodes and things like that, but we're trying to be no code at best. It's low code. Let's use something that was developed for this purpose. Buffer parser. So you can see we have a buffer of data on the right hand side there. Let's parse that into reasonable, sensible things that would be useful in an IoT environment. So I'm going to swap the data because I know it's a little endian. And I'll get some integer, unsigned integer. I'm going to get the production count, which I am pretty sure is in byte 24. I could be wrong. I should check my notes, which I no longer have open. Try that. And scrap count. You can see what we get. Let's switch that one off so we don't see that. I'll leave it on for a second. And fire. Demos. Now that is confusing. No, it's not confusing. It's because I've made a mistake. Something double-clicked somewhere. That's the good thing about it. If you're not familiar with Node-RED, you know, being graphical like this, just move something around. You can see I didn't have the wires connected. It is as simple as that. It's not like I have to dig through code and try again. And there we go. So we have a value made sense of there, and I would go on and I would add the rest of the items like the running, whether the machine is running or not, which is a Boolean. I'm pretty sure that's in 24, bit 0. There's a fault flag and various other elements of data. I will not bore you with all of this detail. I hope you get the gist of what's happening with the buffer parser here. So yeah, we're still on account 100 and running is false and fault is false, but essentially I am taking data from a PLC. I will quickly switch back to that PLC. So you can see the PLC, and behind it is its HMI, which I'll go through in a second. And yeah, I'm reading data from that PLC. It comes in as a raw buffer, and then converting that into usable, sensible values, all in Node-RED. Okay. So yeah, as I say, I'm not going to go through filling in all of those details. I'm going to delete that. And here's one I prepared earlier. So I'll talk you through what this is doing. There's a lot more to it, but it's essentially the same. There's the reading of 40 data memories from the PLC. Here is the parser stripping out some values, filtering them, making sure they're good state. And then I take those values and pass them into some UI elements, a dashboard. So for example, here's a fault LED. Here is a state trail with colors and a cycle time value, which comes from our data that we are collecting, and an SVG with some animation. Just feeding that data in. You can see it there from the data collection page. I'll go back. It's coming from here. Go back again. Okay, enough of that. I'll show you the dashboard. That's being generated from this. So it's very, very simplistic HMI, but it didn't take long to do either. So, you know, if I had more time, I would make it a lot more fancy, but we have something just to demonstrate that you can get the status of a machine. So these two small, relatively small flows, taking the data, making it nice, passing it to the dashboard elements, we get this here. So this, you can see a state trail. If I put the machine into fault mode, we're now showing some in fault. The machine is stopped. If I reset that and start the machine again, you can see we're back into run mode, and the animation graphic continues. It's supposed to be simulating a press, if you can't tell. It's my best it's my best efforts at animation and graphics. I'm usually behind the scenes, not in the front. Anyway, yeah, we have a HMI kind of there developed from these flows on one instance of Node-RED. So let me just catch up with my notes. Okay, on the data collection side of things, so if you remember from the beginning, I said that we would be collecting data and then transforming it, which I'm showing you, collection of data, transformation of data. There's then publishing of data. We need to pass this data up the chain. The manager wants to see it on his browser. So what we're doing, or what we're using, or what I proposed to use was MQTT. And if I just show you quickly what that means. We input the address of the MQTT broker. It could be local, it could be remote, it could be on the web, it could be in AWS, it could be anywhere, the broker. It is a middle in the middle. You pass data to it and that's it. Somebody else subscribes to it and reads that data. There is no direct connection between your manager's browser when he eventually gets his data, and the machine shop level flow. So there's a lot of disconnection. The broker is very useful for that kind of design. And essentially, once we've collected our data and we've sanitized our data, we pass it up the chain, and we use MQT to do that. So we have a status topic, we have a live count topic, a live timers topic, various topics. So I'm pushing these into topics on the MQTT broker. And if that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, then here's a different product, MQTT Explorer. You may or may not be familiar with it, but I'm using a completely different product that knows how to do MQTT, and I'm going to show you what's happening. So if I expand this out, just because I typed in this topic here, I typed in this topic and I passed in my cleaned up data, we end up having this information being passed to the broker. You can see, let me just bring up some graphs and numbers for you. You can see there, production counts and things. It's information, it's data being passed into a broker. You come along with your other application, your whatever it is that you, in this case, it's going to be Node-RED again, your other application, and you draw that data out of the broker. I hope that helps clarify what's going on here. The broker is this mystical beast sitting somewhere in the middle. I'm pushing data into it, and the MQTT Explorer, other application is asking for and taking from the broker. Sorry if I'm teaching anybody to suck eggs, but we never know who's listening. So that's the third step of the chain of data, so to speak. So we've gone through collection, transformation, and publishing. We now want to ingest that data. And the end goal, remember, is to give the manager more graphics. So I'm finished with this device flow. It runs in the background. It's running now, and I want to have a look at. I want to develop a dashboard for the manager. It's ultimately what he's asked for. So ingesting the MQTT data is just the opposite of what we did on the device where we published it. So I will quick demonstration of how easy that is. We said we're using MQTT. So this time we're using MQTT in Node. We need a broker connection, which I'm not going to use the public one. I'm going to use internal. We set this up, we connect, and we enter a topic. Anybody remember the topics?
Sorry, Steve, I can't help you with that.
I've got it just here. It'll take a moment. Yeah, what shall I take? I'll take stats. So that's the copy I've published to. I now need to subscribe to that same topic, and we want to see it somewhere. So I will connect that to a debug node. I'll deploy that, and there is the data coming in, just as you've seen it on MQTT Explorer. Now I would go on and create, ingest more data, everything that I need to be able to record the data in the database, to visualize it for the manager, and I could spend time filling in all of these gaps. But here's one I prepared earlier. Okay. Yeah, I've put some titles on here to help me, but also to show you that there's not a great deal to getting a lot out of this. I'm going to write that down a bit. So here you can see this is the main dashboard, the supervisor view, so to speak. And I'm subscribing to the stats topic here, which if I switch this debug on, you can see the values coming through. And I can get machine running counts, I can get all of the data I need to and drop them into UI elements. So as an example, here's using machine status, I can feed that into an LED. Now, just to show you what that looks like. I will create a fault. And deploy first. My apologies. He says, yeah, okay. So with the data that's been published, we ingest it using MQTT on the dashboard instance of Node-RED. We strip out the value, sorry, we route the values to the various elements that we want to display. So following the wires down there, you can see I have a count and a scrap count coming from this here. This filter is essentially saying, look at the topic. If the topic is machine 1 live counts, and I think that's where the issue is. So I'm fixing things in real time. If it's live 1 count, go out of the output number 1. If it's live status, go out of output number 2. And if it's live timers, go out of output number 3. Hopefully that fixes things. Yeah, and the OEE information is, again, it's a different topic, but let's just have a quick look at what's come in there. You can see passed in to MQTT from the device is a bunch of numbers, and I put these onto gauge nodes in here. I set some minimums, maximums, some colors. I press deploy, and we have them numbers displayed here. So we've taken a very quick recap. We're on the ingestion stage. So the data was collected, transformed, published, and now it's been ingested and visualized on a dashboard. Not very pretty dashboard, but enough for this demonstration. I'm sure there are far more creative people than I when it comes to visuals. Is there anything else left on there? There's not, and then there's the store data element. So what we have at this point here is I write the data to a database. Now the database was going to be, I was going to write it to a SQL Server database for demonstration purposes. That's what in my line of industry was primarily used, but it by no means has to be the choice. There are so many ways of storing data in Node-RED. So there is MySQL nodes, there was MongoDB, there is Influx, which I believe, Rob, you have a demo, or something coming up?
Yeah, we're working on a webinar with those guys. Yeah, I think in about a month's time. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Influx, MySQL, Postgres, Redis. Yeah, you can put your data anywhere. My database for the time being is, in this demonstration, I'm storing in context. There's my database. I've got 62 rows of data. And what I'm recording here is, for the batch, I'm recording the quality, the runtime of it, the performance number, the availability number, and the OEE. World-class OEE, they're 85%, 85.9%. And you store that data in database, you're going to make queries to get it back out. Your manager wants reports, right? So the final part of this, which isn't pretty, because I only finished it 5 minutes before this this webinar started, is taking that data, reading it from the database, which, like I say, could be a SQL Server, MySQL, Redis, and creating a PDF. So I don't think this is going to work. I literally haven't tried it. Did I get an error? Maybe not. Let's have a look. No joy. I will just simply dump that to the screen. So, if anybody knows binary PDF, there you go. Here's a PDF for you right there. Essentially,
I can just read that. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yes.
you read the matrix.
Just code, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's green lines coming down the screen. Yeah, so PDF make is another contribution node. You install it, you send it file with a help file. It tells you how to build the document definition. This is more of the low code than the no code parts of it, but you create a document definition with all of your tables and stylings and all that sort of stuff, and you take your data from the database, you create your document definition, send it to the node, and out comes a PDF, as you've seen in binary format there. Fantastic. Yeah. Let me catch up on my notes. Okay, so I'm maybe run through that rather quickly. So I'm okay with answering a few questions, Rob, if there's something pressing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, we do have a few questions, and yeah, thanks, Steve, for running through that. That's fantastic. Okay, so my background is not in manufacturing, so when I butcher the pronunciation of some of these products and services, I apologize, everyone, in advance. The first one actually isn't too bad. How would you model industrial marshalling in Node-RED? Is there a single node for such a thing, or do you use a bunch of standard nodes? This is a question from Eric. Does that give you enough context, Steve?
Let me open the Q&A and
yeah, sure.
Read that again.
So it's the top, it's the first one.
Right. Okay. When it says marshalling, I'm going to have to assume, because it's a wide topic, but timing of data collection and ingestion of non-IoT data, so old data like I've done from this PLC. Is there a single node for such thing? No. It also what needs to be sort of clear in Node-RED, it's very much, or should be rather, event-based. However, if you from older PLC times where there was no MQTT or OPC UA, a lot of the data had to be pulled. It had to be grabbed from the PLC and taken out. So in essence, the Omron demonstration I've done today is pulling that data. So it's time-based. So in this particular instance, if I just go back to the first flow, this timestamp node is set to pull every 0.5 seconds. And that's the marshalling of this particular point. So in a flow that some of the flows I've worked on where it's communicating with an Omron PLC, a Mitsubishi PLC, it's transmitting data to MQTT, to database, a whole bunch of asynchronous operations. The marshalling and timing and coordination of all that there's not a one fits all solution, but there is some nodes that are very good for it, for the timing aspect of it. Everything should be event-based. That's the ideal node, is event-based system. So when a value comes in, you then act on it. You don't just continually poll what we have to with the old PLCs. I'll get to the point. And there's a node called Cron Plus, which I wrote, and it's brilliant. Thank you. Cron Plus you can add as many schedules to that, and it uses cron syntax. And if you're not familiar with cron syntax, there's an actual helper. I don't have it installed to demo, but you can set multiple schedules that can be started and stopped, and you can So if you wanted to not poll a lot of things during nighttime because you don't do a night shift, you can instruct the cron node to stop polling. So there is not one standard thing. It's what best fits your bespoke, because let's face it, every standard facility and every standard production line has differences. You call it a standard, but it isn't standard. I hope that goes in some way to answer what you asked. Eric, thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. One thing I haven't mentioned, so you guys can actually, if you have a microphone, you can actually ask follow-on questions. So sorry, Eric, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but feel free if you don't want to ask a follow-up question, or if you don't have a working mic, that's fine. Oh, hello, you've unmuted yourself.
Yes, hello, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, do you want to ask any follow-on question for that, or anything else?
Yeah, I guess my question is like, I'm a coder as well. I do industrial automation, build security systems and stuff. Use Node-RED a lot, and I mean, most of us, at least I am, we tend to be extremely anal when we build like industrial cabinets, and with the labeling and I use marshalling blocks. All my inputs, all my connections go into a marshalling block. I never connect anything directly to the PLC. They're all nicely labeled. When I get to Node-RED, it tends to get really messy really quick. I'm a very visual person. When I look at my industrial cabinet, I immediately know, and I've heard a lot from everybody that has to work on it. They come and they immediately see a perfect reflection of the system. But when I get to Node-RED, I usually have to, it's a total mental shift, because I use a lot of different nodes. And so the question was, is there a way, like your typical marshalling blocks with a bunch of inputs and labels? And I've searched around for this question as well, especially working with Modbus. I haven't found an answer to that. Like a single node where data goes in, and let's say your PLC has eight digital outputs, digital inputs, that you have a node that you can set up to have 8 outputs and do some basic data transformation going in and have a clear 8 outputs going out.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Let me just do a very quick demo for you. So I understand it's not typically how I work, but you have your visual, how do I put it? Everyone has their own way, right? Understanding what's in front of you.
I'm doing it like you so far.
Yeah. So let me take an example where there is something. I'll take a lot of data because I don't know where else it is, and just drop that into a debug. So it's very typical of your Modbus. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'll make it look like Modbus, and I will make that an array of unsigned. So there's some data there. There's a value in the first and third word there. Change that back to buffer. And yeah, it's not pretty. You might have function nodes, etc. Yeah, there is an easy way to, when we talk about marshalling the data rather than timing marshalling. Yeah. So have you used buffer parser or not? Have you heard of it?
Not yet, no.
Right. Okay. So let's say you have 8 inputs.
The standard node, yeah, the standard buffer parser, yeah.
Okay. So you know this. Well, for anybody else watching, then, if I knew the first bit was power, and the second bit was fault, and third bit is, give me some help here. What is your system? What are your first 8 bits? Gate, close, open. And the next one is stop. And the next one is, I don't know, roller cycle. And the next one called item 6, 7, and 8, because I'm not typing anymore. Okay, and I'll tell you what, I will just take this from data memory 100. I will output, sorry, let me just change that to fan out because that's what you asked, essentially. So there, all right. So if you look at the output of that there, you see now you've got power, fault, gate open, e-stop, etc., etc. So that there, as I've said before, that's not usually the way I operate because it makes it nice and visual, and a lot of people like that. Probably my problem is I know what's inside of there, so I'm happy for them to all travel down in one message, and I don't have to join them up later on. So I hope that helps, Eric. Anyway.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Rob.
Yeah, so I was just on mute. Yes, thanks for the question, Eric. That's fantastic.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Okay, so 1 sec. I'm just wrangling the user interface. No, don't want to do that. Hang on, I'm just going to have to. Sorry, everyone, just give me a sec. Okay, cool. So on to the next question, which is from Mike. Is there a way of batching a bunch of MQTT messages to a server in a compressed chunk, for example, to save, or for the purpose of to save cellular data?
Which question did you say that was?
So it's a question from Mike. It's the second one down on the questions.
Is there a way of batching a bunch of MQTT messages to a server in a compressed chunk? Okay, save cellular data. Yes, actually, not that I've done it. What off the top of my head, if you are talking about MQTT, by the way, is very light protocol. It's not. It's as busy and as quiet as you want it to be, mostly. If you're not sending anything, there is a ping request and a ping response that goes on in the background, but it's a very small packet. If you've got a lot of data to transmit over MQTT, maybe infrequent, but a lot of it when it happens, and you want to compress that, sure, yeah, there are contrib nodes, zip. There is a zip contrib node. It doesn't mean you have to zip a file, and it's not particularly talking about the zip files anyway. It's talking about compressing data. So there is, and I'll hopefully I can demo that live. I've not done this, but yeah. Oh, there's gzip as well, and there is a couple of others. There's PK somewhere I thought I'd seen. Okay, so let's take a large-ish example from here. What is this one? Yeah, this is quite a large bit of data here. If I just put it on screen, cellular speaking, we'll assume that there's 6,000 entries in there. Let's give this a go. Let's connect that to a zip node. Did it? Right, I installed it on the wrong one. Let's install it again. Sorry, guys. But if you mark what time I start this and what time I finish it, hopefully you'll get an appreciation what Node-RED is capable of. You know, it's like you've asked the question, can I zip up my MQTT data? I don't know. I've not done it, but I'm pretty sure you can.
Just while you're doing that, Steve, just a question that's come in on chat. What was the scheduling node that you mentioned?
Cron plus, as in CRON -plus.
I will look that up. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's super useful for scheduling. So when I wrote it, it was actually used in production in an environment I used to work for to set up production schedule, start and end times, break times, so that the PLC knew when the guys were supposed to be on a break, so it didn't record OE data for break times and things like that, you know. And you can automate it, fully automate it to start and stop these schedules. And okay, sorry, back on this.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll never have a leading slash. And let's also bring it back in. So well, let's prove it. Put it on a different device. That's the topic. coming in, compressed. And let's make sure we send to the same broker that we received from. There it is. Ah, must be a string. So let's first of all change that to a string. There we go. We have compressed that payload down. Hopefully, it's not an extremely large payload to start with, so there'll be a lot of overhead in comparison to a large payload. The overhead will be very small, but we are compressing this. If anybody can read zips, you can see the PK at the beginning. Anybody, can you see that, Rob?
Oh
So
yeah, just like encoded PDFs. Yeah, I can see that. I don't know.
You can see the PK.
I can indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So that tells you that it's a zip, or a PK zip. So yes, it has been compressed. I've connected it to MQTT. Let's see, did we get it on the other side? Or do we get it on the other side? Which I'm sure we will. Oh, yeah. It's noisy. There it is coming in, but it's still only compressed data. It makes no sense to you. So let's try and make it into normal data.
Steve, I might just bring, see if Mike wants to ask any. I'm just mindful of we've got quite a few. Thanks everyone, because there's quite a few questions and we want to try.
I will. Hopefully this is done now.
Mike, if you feel that, please don't feel pressure, but if you would like to comment or ask anything further, please, you should now be able to do so, but I will give you a moment.
Yeah, that's great. I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, is that, anything follow on, or just has that hopefully addressed your question?
No, I hadn't thought of solving the problem that way, but that's that works.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
and there it is. Yeah, I don't have the time to resolve the. It does work. It will work. I'm hopeful you can see that there, Mike.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I've Mike's dropped back out. Sorry, Steve. But yeah, that's fantastic. Okay.
I've got to hook the right parts up. It will work. I can see the data there. It will convert back into a buffer. I just haven't got the time to transfer that.
It's fine. It's fine.
Mike. But yes, is the answer to your question. Yeah,
fantastic. Okay. Thanks for that question, Mike. Okay, so a question from Ramesh. So, and I'll try, I may mispronounce a little bit of this. So it's at the top of the Q&A, Steve, if you want to look. We're looking for a specific node for communicating with FANUC CNC controllers, i30/i31 series. Can you please suggest if any such node is available in Node-RED? Just on this, Ramesh, I don't know. Steve may well just know the perfect node, custom node for you. He may well, sometimes he does, but also there are literally thousands of custom nodes. So sometimes we've come across stuff, sometimes we haven't. Steve, have you got anything on that particular piece of equipment?
I don't. However,
okay.
I have collected data from FANUC robots.
Okay.
And under the hood, most of the FANUC use an NC controllers. You know, they have an operating system, and the NC controllers that I've used had their own internal web pages, and then one of those web pages was all the system variables and dig IDO values and things like that, and I scraped them using HTTP request nodes. So in particular, with this particular i30, i31 model, haven't used them, haven't connected to them. I don't know whether they have an inbuilt web server. They will have, most likely, and they'll probably got an FTP server as well. So there is a possibility of getting data from these devices. There is also a DigLL or a FANUC Connect library that I forget the name of, which probably will communicate with these. I hope that helps. Ramesh?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Ramesh, if you would like to comment.
There's one other possibility. If these i30 and i31 controllers have parallel programming, then I once wrote a program.
It is.
There is parallel, yes?
Hi, Ramesh. Hello, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, so I think Sharif has mentioned here, it's a focus library. but I am struggling to find any particular node. Like for other controllers from Siemens or other Mitsubishi and other manufacturers, we already have nodes in Node-RED, but Fanuc, we are not having any specific node. So that was my question.
Yeah, so very quickly, Ramesh, because there is a lot more questions, but I will give you some pointers, which I've already said, but also there's, do you know if these controllers have the Carol programming language?
No, I am not aware of that actually.
Okay. Well, okay. So it's an odd language, but it's flexible enough to actually write data to memory areas inside of the FANUC controller. And then you should be able to extract them from web pages or FTP. And there is other options. There's a couple I know of. Ethernet IP interface. Do you know if these controllers have, or if you can add a controller that adds Ethernet IP or Modbus to the controllers?
It has Ethernet interface only, but I think they have some wrapper around it, and the base protocol, which I think is OPC UA, but they have some specific library, so we cannot have a simple OPC UA server client communication.
Unfortunately,
rather we have to have something to go around with that focus library.
Ramesh, give a shout on the forum, asking this same question, and I'll try and pick it up and help you out at a later point.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Okay, so we've got another question from Eric, but Eric, you've already asked one, so I'll leave that to the end and see if we get enough time. So we've got a question from Jeff. Jeff says, Steve, since you worked in industrial controls previously, are there any strategies for laying out or organizing flows that make the most sense for controls engineers?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a lazy programmer. I don't do this a lot, but if you're using newer versions of Node-RED, there are things you can do to improve the visibility. If you consider the age-old statement about Node-RED, it's not a dashboard, but from a dashboard point of view, if you group your nodes together, you can make areas that appear to be segmented. And there's one other tip I'll get back to it, which is the link call node. I'll come back to that in a second. So yeah, you give your group a color. Let's say green means it's production collection data. And let's say this group is purely to do with OEE, and you want that to be in a nice purple color for some strange reason. There's obviously things like the link nodes in and link nodes out, but what I'm quite fond of is the link call node. Now, what this does is creates kind of subroutines. So let's say we had an inject node and something else and various things that want to use the same bit of code. This code here, yeah, you could make a subflow. I don't like subflows, and I think you find your engineers will find them confusing, because a subflow is an instance. It's like a function block in a PLC, and ask any maintenance support technician why this function block instance doesn't look right to the real world. Yeah, they don't know. They get confused. I'm not saying everybody does that. It's very judgmental. They are confusing. They can be confusing. Function nodes and subflows in PLC terms. So the link call is different in that it's more like a subroutine call. So what happens here is when you set up your link nodes and link call in this fashion here, I will put them on a different page so it looks cleaner. When this triggers, it will go into this link node, it will go down to here, run through the PDF make, then it hits this return, comes back to this point, and then goes out of there. When you press this inject, it does exactly the same thing. It goes down this to here, through this node to there and back. Now, what that means is these subroutines can be on a separate page. So you could make a whole bunch of subroutines on a separate page. And then you call them. Then it keeps your code nice and clean. And you give that a nicer name. Instead of linking in one, it would be build a PDF. And that's using that there is my preferred layout. How I like to arrange things. I'll put things, say the visuals, data collection, subroutines, and then grouping them together. But if it's going to be a final product, great. If you're continually messing with it like I do, yeah, I'm spending cycles putting things in boxes and then taking them out of boxes. I hope that helps in some way, Jeff.
Jeff, I'll give you a few seconds if you want to talk, you can. I appreciate not everybody has microphones, although most of us do these days, but still not everybody. Okay, no problem at all. We will move on. Okay, probably time just for one more, I think. So yeah, the FlowForge question, which I think is kind of interesting. So from Xavier, I think I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, right? I think it's Xavier or is it Xavier? So, thank you so much. What's next for Node-RED and FlowForge in terms of working with edge devices and machine learning? Thank you. Maybe break that down, maybe do the edge devices stuff as a
Sure. Okay. Right. Well, funny you should ask, because coming in the next version of FlowForge, you see this demonstration that I've got here of FlowForge. So you've mentioned FlowForge yourself, so I'm pretty sure you're at least aware of what it looks like. Hopefully you've used it as well. So an application can have multiple instances, and every instance can have devices. This particular instance has no devices. I'm not working with devices at the moment. However, this one, which is also running, called data processing, has a single instance. It does have devices, and one of them is running. So, Javier, what's happening here is we are introducing, this is not by any means final. So, if this gets ripped out or changed in some way, I apologize now. Don't hold me to this. It's still in development. I've done the UI and the work, but I'm not the UI guy. So it may look very different when it's finished, but the principle is along these lines. So what we're looking at is having dual mode of devices. For now, I've called them autonomous and programmer mode. When a device is in autonomous mode, it will get the latest snapshot delivered directly down to it. So yeah, its active snapshot is very nicely named DDDD and so forth and so forth. It's in autonomous mode with a green link saying that it's linked together. FlowForge and the device are in one, they are synchronous. When you switch to developer mode, as it's called at the moment, you get a couple of new options down here on the device itself. You can see that the device is in developer mode, it's unlinked. You can do what you want to it. And one of those things is to enable a tunnel to communicate to that device. This is a remote device. It's
sorry,
running...
Steve, I should just say we're probably got 30 seconds left, just because I'm
mindful.
Yeah, just
no worries. So
just
that's your remote device. When you finish and you save that, you can create a snapshot from that device. Snapshot created, and then you can switch that back out of developer mode into autonomous mode. Happy that the work you've just done on that remote device has been uploaded and saved as a snapshot. I hope that helps, Javier. Javier.
Yeah, I think, and also what I'm really excited about this stuff that Steve's just been demoing is it will mean if you say have 100 devices in a facility, you can potentially, because sometimes if you work in something in the cloud that isn't connected to all the sensors it needs, it can be quite hard to change things. So you can develop
even just debugging, Rob, even just like seeing what's not working, a device has got a hardware flaw. You need to sometimes see the debug messages in that device, you know?
Yeah, so you can work on that on one of your devices, but then you can, in a few clicks, distribute that out to all of your other devices that are running the FlowForge device agent. So yeah, I'm really excited for that, and I've been doing a bit of work around that as well.
For the last few seconds, Rob, you would notice that Pavel below has asked, can I debug a flaw deployed on the device? Not yet, but as you've just seen, soon, hopefully.
Yeah, very soon. Yeah, good.
Can I enable a project? I believe the next question is also coming soon as well.
What I would suggest, Steve, if like what we've done previously, because there's some great questions still outstanding, so we can just answer them after. So yeah, potentially put it on as a blog post, or maybe we could answer them. I think sometimes we've posted them on the Node-RED forums. So we really do appreciate the questions, everyone. And there's still quite a lot, you know, of good ones to go through. So yeah, we'll chat to Steve and see if he's got the time to go through these. He clearly seems quite, you know, interested in some of the remaining questions. I think then, thanks, Steve. That was fantastic. Really interesting. My background isn't manufacturing, so it's great to learn more about some of the challenges, but also some of the solutions to link these legacy type systems into the modern world of Node-RED. So I'm learning, which is great. Thanks everyone for coming and sticking around for the hour and asking some fantastic questions. It really, you know, the questions often like spark the most interesting parts of what we cover. So thank you very much.
Answering the questions was far easier than the delivering the work, funnily enough.
Yeah. I'd just like to take a quick opportunity to plug FlowForge, who we both work for. If you don't know FlowForge, you can, we have a cloud version of FlowForge where you can spin up an instance of Node-RED free for 30 days. We think a lot of the tools we're putting around Node-RED really make it more appropriate and more appropriate to use in like commercial production environments. And that's really what we're trying to do, dealing with DevOps and some of the stuff Steve was showing a moment ago.
We have to be the builds, right?
Yeah, well, I feel so, yeah. And then also we have an Ask Me Anything session coming up with Nick O'Leary, one of the founders, if that's the correct word, founder, anyway, of Node-RED, and our and myself, and we're going to be working, we're going to be talking about some best practice for debug from sort of hobby projects through to full production systems running in Node-RED. So you can find out about the details of that on our website if anyone would like to attend. And I think I've done everything. Hopefully that was great for everyone. That was the first time I've done one of these, so hopefully I didn't miss anything. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully see you on the next AMA or webinar. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.